the whole thing with Tua, when we talked about him 6 weeks ago, was not, man, I hope he's going to be able to work out for a long period of time, and I've got to see the hip when it's tired. The whole thing was, is Tua going to be able to show NFL scouts and organizations that he still is the sudden player that he was in Alabama? The Floyd Mayweather type boxer in the pocket where there's this sudden movement. And for him to look like this on March 23rd is a massive deal, because this is one of the big questions that we all had with Tua. What are you going to look like in March? Because I'll be honest with you, I did not expect to see a video like this in March. Maybe middle to the back end of April as we got into May. But the fact that, again, all the question marks that were tied to him when it comes to the offseason, I don't know what he's going to look like with pressure and live bodies around him and getting hit. But when it comes to the offseason, for him to continue to go, okay, the hip got checked with the medical doctors. They raved about that. The MRI was great. Raved about that. Now a video of him moving. And again, this is not a video that just yesterday was his first moment of movement. Like, he's obviously been ramping this up. For him to look like that in March, it is a big deal, because if you're these organizations going, we don't know what his health is looking like, we don't know if he's ready to move, for him to be able to do that in March is huge for teams.
Guys, let me get Graziano in on this thing. I saw Dan Graziano there, our NFL insider extraordinaire. And Dan, you heard Mel talking about he doesn't like to project trades, and we get that. But what are you starting to hear as we are about a month away from this about the possibility of teams trading up to make sure they can get Tua Tagovailoa?
Well, you look at two spots, Greeny. You look at the Detroit Lions at number 3. I believe they would be very willing to move out of that spot, move down a little bit, accumulate more picks if someone wanted to come up to that number 3 spot and make sure and secure the quarterback that they want. That's the most likely one. The next one, of course, is the New York Giants at 4, and I think theoretically they would be willing to do it too, but historically they haven't. Their GM, Dave Gettleman, never traded down one time in 5 years as Panthers GM or the last 2 years as Giants GM. And his predecessor in New York, Jerry Reese, never traded down in any round in 11 years as GM. So organizationally, they don't tend to like to do that. So I would look at the Lions at number 3. Listening to these two guys, as usual, Marcus is making more sense to me than Orlovsky, because when you look at a 10-second video, you're talking about teams making decisions for the long term. Teams are going to have two big questions. They have a lot of questions about Tua, but two big ones. Number one, how does he look now? Number two, how long do we think he can last? And you heard different reports coming from different teams that you talked to after the combine in terms of how certain they were about investing in Tua Tagovailoa long term because of the health questions. So it's going to depend on which team is sold and how many of them are willing to actually move up and make sure that they take him if he's the guy that they think is their future.
I'm going to defend my man Orlovsky. Obviously, no 10-second video can change your mind about how durable Tua is going to be long term. But as far as where he is, if you have those questions and that takes him off your board, then nothing he does between now and then is going to change that. Frankly, that's where I'd be if it were my job riding on all of this. But Marcus, however healthy he is along the way obviously does make a difference. And that tape does look better, I think, than we would have expected. Marcus, 10 seconds.
Gee, I'm not off the boat with what Dan is saying. I just think these teams want to see more than that in order to feel the confidence that they need to have in order to draft Tua that high. I'm not saying that he won't be drafted that high, but I can't go off this video when teams are going to put Tua through vigorous workouts once somebody says he's medically cleared, just to see where this hip is. And not only that, have their scouts and medical personnel look into why Tua has sustained these injuries throughout the course of his career. I think that's the most important thing going forward. Like I said, I've been talking to Laura. You guys have been talking to Laura. We thought that Tua would progress along faster.
Thank you for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.